I had a toad shoot up my back one night. We're in a position. We ended up also getting bit up by bird mites. Birds
yeah, didn't you? You're surrounded by birds.
By birds. So we got bit up by them, and then so it looked like I got hit with a shotgun. But that night, like, it was completely dark on there.
Shotgun?
Yeah. It looked like you got hit by a shotgun.
It looked like.
Yeah,
Okay.
Because you're so bit up. It was.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome. Here we are, Mark and myself on this side of the table, and on the other side is Mr. Tony Paulskill, and we are going to talk about the life of a sniper. And so we'll caveat this ahead of time. We got to throw this out now. Tony himself is a guy who is perfect to interview for this kind of a podcast, but also we have to know that this isn't going to be the giant book of all the secrets and guides to be a prolific sniping machine. Tony has briefed us on that ahead of time. That's not necessarily something that you want to do because, unfortunately, bad guys can listen to this as well. And the other thing is, too, Tony actually, in what he does at Vortex, is by its own nature, also a bit secretive. So normally we're like, hey, what do you do at Vortex here? Tell us all about it. That he can't even necessarily talk a ton about either. So we're going to try to make this like not one big giant redacted bleep, just sort of nothing. We'll try and get into it, but also stay around the edges of anything that would be sensitive information. But yeah, Tony, you've been on before. You were on in our Reloading to the Extreme pod venture. You talked a bit about reloading and stuff because you do a lot of that yourself.
Correct. Yep.
But yeah, and then I think you did a little intro there, but just for everybody out there, how about another brief intro on you? And
I was military, 22 years. Majority of it I spent in a sniper community, which I enjoyed immensely. It was a lifestyle that, if you get the opportunity to do it as long as I was able to, fortunate enough to do it anyway. And then I got out about 8 months ago and joined the Vortex team.
Not long ago, yeah.
Yeah.
How, right off the bat, just that length of time. So when you were in, I mean, we weren't even in the 2000s yet.
No, I came in at 97. I'm horrible with and
What's
everybody's
that?
like numbers. I'm really bad. Really good with numbers, but I'm really bad with the years.
That's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
What's that? I mean, just right off the bat, what's that been like being somebody in the military for that long of time, and how many things you've seen conspire during that time?
Yeah, it's the thing is like, and I guess we're just so busy when I was in that it went by really, really fast. And and before I got out, I tell the guys that were, should I stay in? Should I get out? And I said, hey man, I said it goes by really fast. I mean, pretty soon you turn around and all of a sudden you're at 10 years. Then you're at 15, and then all of a sudden you're going, I'm already at 20 in the day. I remember, that day, like, I've been 20, you hit your anniversary, and I was like, it's October 6th. I was like, holy cow, that was my day that I went in, and I was like, it's right for gun season, so it worked out. So Wisconsin here. So it goes by really quick, and even the guys that I talk to that are still in, and they put a lot more time and years in. I'm just like, man, you already been 26 years, 27 years, and they're like, yeah, it's coming up really quick, because they're going to do that 30, and 4 years goes by really quick when you're in there, especially if you stay busy. I mean, it's if you're in for quite a while, I think the thing was that they always said the first 4 years is the slowest, and I think it really was, because I thought it turned out to be the fastest because you're kind of learning the ropes, but it turns in I felt like when I got towards the end, it was when I knew I was looking at getting out. It really went by fast. Those last 2 years flew by. Yeah.
Really? And I mean, this is kind of in being the life of a sniper. I'm curious, are most snipers in for quite some time like you were, or was your particular job you just kind of ended up being in longer and most guys aren't quite in that long? Or?
Yeah, I mean, to actually be either in charge of a sniper platoon or actually being operational as one, it's not, you don't get that much time at all. Normally, you've got a time frame because it's a secondary MOS. So if
What does that mean?
All right, so an MOS is military occupational specialty, which is it's a designated. So it used to be like when I went through school, I was an 8541, and then they changed it since all infantry is 03, so they changed it to 0317. So the individuals coming out now that are snipers, they go through sniper school, they are coming out as an 0317. But there's right now they're working at trying to fix it. We've been trying to fix it for quite a while, but they're trying to make it to where it's a continuous, kind of like the reconnaissance community. You can stay in recon forever, if you want to. But since the sniper, and recon does have their snipers as well, they have the majority of them that are sniper trained. But anyway, for the infantry side of the house, they have their platoons that one platoon can support support a battalion. So, but in that platoon, you only have so many people that you have your platoon sergeant, platoon commander, and then you have your snipers that not all of them are snipers, but majority of them are, some are school trained, some are not, but you train them up to become that. So you only have so many slots to fit in that. You can go up to I've seen platoons of 32 people. Well, you have two of them people that are in charge, and you can only have so many because of rank. You only have so many people that can stay in that side of the house for that long. So there's only so many spots. It's like everything out there. There's only so many spots for a job. So but to be able to move from that and go to I was at the schoolhouses as well as an instructor, and then I was in charge of the other one in North Carolina. But there's only so many spots for those people. So if not, they have to go back to the normal infantry. So it's not like they get kicked out of the military because of it. You can still be sniper qualified and be just a normal 0311. You can move over into that side. And it happens when you normally pick up staff sergeant. So E6. If you're pretty good all the way up to as a sergeant, you can be still a team leader and all that. And that if not, you got to be in charge of a platoon, or you go back to normal infantry. So.
Interesting. Yeah, I was gonna. The way you were saying that, it almost sounded like there are some people that are sniper trained, but they may not be snipers. Do they then become if somebody went over and they went back to the regular infantry? You hear of the designated marksman, and that's something different, right?
Yes.
Now, is there a particular school they go through to become a designated marksman, or is it just you're a regular infantry guy in this platoon or whatever, but you're just the best shooter?
No, there's a school you go to be a DM, designated marksman, but yeah, they're not snipers, and snipers aren't. Well, snipers can be DMs because they're more. You have just a better level of shooting when you go to sniper school. Like when I was at the schoolhouse too, I had a guy that went through and really good friends with him still, and he was a DM. He went through DM training and came to the platoon and then he went to school, and he realized that his training as a DM wasn't wasn't as in depth as it was. So he learned a lot more about the shooting aspect of it.
So if you're sniper qualified, but maybe due to whatever circumstances you're not a sniper at a certain time, does their number get called occasionally? Like, hey, this is opened up, or we're doing this and we need to call your number?
No, it's so what happens is, and we'll get kind of the basic.
That's a stupid question.
I know exactly what you're
saying.
saying.
Wondering the same thing, actually.
So how it all works is, and this is kind of information that gets out there, and so what happens is you go into the military. So I'm just going Marine Corps wide because it's not, I don't know, I'm not going to speak of the other services that I know of. So how the sniper side works and how to get into that is you have to go to the recruiter. You have to be an infantryman. So there is other ones that have found a way to go through sniper school. It used to be when I first came in, you talk about, how things were. They used to offer it as a re-enlistment incentive to go to sniper school. When I first came in, and it was insane, especially going through the school. You're just like, how did anyone that had no idea? Because I was fortunate enough to have really awesome guys that helped me out before I even went to school, that really showed you the ropes on how to do certain things, that made school so much easier, because school is no joke. So, but how it is, you join as an 03, just an infantryman. There's an 03 as just an infantry base. You can be a machine gunner because like even machine guns are 0331. So it's just anything 03. I'm not going to speak on the outside of how other people get into the school, but what happens is you go there, and then after you go through your boot camp, then you go into your School of Infantry, which is your infantry training. You join a battalion, and at the battalion, there's different ways. I've seen it doing is you go through a screener, and some of them is as simple as a record book screener, meaning going through and seeing if you have a high PFT, if you already have just shooting skills. That way, if not, you go through a really fun, but it's just a screening process of going, and what they really are looking for is people that don't quit, because you can teach people. I mean, you can teach, like I just said, you could teach a monkey to shoot, but to get the mindset of having a non quit, not to give up, is really what they're looking for. So the sniper platoon will put out a paper and say, hey, we're looking for X amount of guys, because may have had people have left the platoon at the time. So you show up and you go through this ringer, and then they select you, and then you join the platoon. You don't go straight to sniper school. Some of them do. When I was in charge of school, it's like we had guys come straight there, and which is unfortunate because they're really kind of in the dark on things that should have been done prior. But anyway, so you get trained in a platoon, and you're called a PIG, a professional instructor gunman, and then you have the snipers, which is hogs or hunters or gunmen. But these pigs, the new joins, they are taught by the platoon on everything they're going to do to go through sniper school, from the shooting to the stalking to the wind reading to they're normally a good platoon will normally get them people, and they'll get them prepped for school, and then it sends them down there, and it makes that 3 months a lot better. It's a lot better. So that's how they become. So then you just stay in that platoon, and you can transfer platoons. We've had you may go from one unit to the next unit and then join straight in. You should never have to go back to the screener again. Once you go through one and you become a sniper, you don't go back into having to do a screener. If you're already qualified as a sniper, you can go from unit to unit.
Okay.
So,
okay. Got it.
Yeah, it's weird, but it's you can stay in that until, like I said, until you pick up probably E6, and either you're a platoon sergeant or you're going back to normal infantry to be a platoon sergeant for a battalion.
Okay.
So
got it.
Yeah.
So now I know a big thing that gets talked about, obviously, with being a sniper and whatnot, and this is probably part of the thing where you got to be a little bit careful and not, but it is the sniper school.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying
Yep.
it's this 3 months, and like you said, it's no joke.
Right.
Some movies, which I'm sure, how do you talk about the life of a sniper without not acknowledging some of the movies out there and some of the cinematic portrayals of the life of a sniper? But I've watched Jarhead, and I've watched some of the other movies like that portray this sniper school sort of lifestyle and scene. And do they get close? I mean, do people have at least, does the average Joe who's watched these movies like that have any sort of an idea of what sniper school is like? I mean, it looks like you get yelled at a lot, you shoot a fair amount, try and get accurate with your firearm, and then you stalk some stuff in a ghillie suit, which seems pretty cool.
Yeah.
It sounds fun.
Well,
I think you really boiled it down there, Jim.
Right.
that is actually. And the thing is too is that going to the school, there's a lot of stress involved. There's a lot of extra weight involved. There's, and it's stressful because it's one small thing can set you back a lot. It's stressful. I mean, but it's set up to be that way to kind of weed out individuals that. I mean, like I said, it looks cool. Can't hack it. I mean, it looks cool, but then you go back there and you instruct, and it's like, God, when I went through school, it was a lot of fun, And
I was right.
But during the time, it's not. I mean,
Right.
it's not fun. It's funny, and it depends on who you have for like instructors or whatever. But because they make it fun and entertaining, but yeah, I mean, I had awesome instructors. taught me a lot, and the thing is too is that you just take that knowledge and you try to make it better and you pass it down.
Well, there's just a lot riding on it too. Like I've even had, I know, this is like very, very, very toned down version, but I know I've had tests in classes before where the test isn't that hard, but a lot rides on it. It's a big percentage of your grade, and so you get psyched out about it, and then it seems way worse than it really was. I mean, is that somewhat of what? Because if you get into sniper school and you, in theory, like don't do that good or you can't hack it, do you just kind of go back to? I've always wondered actually what happens after that.
You just go back to platoon, and some of them set up to where you get 2 shots at it because I think it was like the numbers wise, what it used to be. I think it was like right around 50% drop, drop rate.
That's a fair amount.
But and it is, like you said, and not only that is at times there's a lot of stress involved because you may not get another opportunity because there's only so many seats that they can take at the school at one time. So you may not get another seat for quite some time, and now you're going back and it's like trying to get that promotion. You didn't get the promotion because once you get done with school, you can be, you can. It's more responsibility. You have more of a role in the platoon itself because you have that knowledge that you passed, and it is a certificate. It's a certification of that you're capable of doing that job and then teaching that job to others as well, and you have that buy-in, type thing. But yeah, you just go back to if not, you have to go back to your platoon and just be the pig again until you get selected for school. Yeah,
live with the fact that you didn't quite get there.
Yeah, you failed.
Yeah,
and like it just a lot of it's like failure's not an option. But you go down there and you have you go in twos. You have your team. So you don't get through. And the thing is, this one is everybody's it's the reason why I enjoyed it so much is that the community is just so, even though it's everything down there is individually based. Like you're evaluated on you. You're not evaluated on your partner, but in a way you are because like for the shooting aspect, you have to rely on your partner's win calls.
Yeah.
So you are relying on each other, and no one makes it through school by themselves. Like anyone said, "Oh, I made it through by myself." Nah.
Well, yeah, as much as because
it's team based.
One of those things that they oftentimes portray a sniper as is this Lone Ranger, desperado, kind of by themselves, oh, look at that thing 1,000 yards away, down. And then they kind of hang out by themselves and they do whatever they want.
Yeah, it's not, that's why I really went over there, because I saw on how they really were in the platoon, how tight it really is. And when you get into that community, it is, there's the partner I had when we went into Iraq, I haven't seen him in, oh my gosh, like 8-9 years. Right before I got out, he came out and saw me, and you just hit it off right away again. Yeah. It's the community. It's so small, but the people that you get that are within there have the same ideals and same values.
Yeah.
Meaning that they don't allow laziness. Because they know that, and you don't want to be lazy because you know that person's relying on you and you're relying on that person. So everything's done at 100% because you don't want to let anyone down. And that's the thing is like failure is not, it's like they said, failure's not an option.
Yeah.
And if you're hurting, no matter if you're hurting, you're going to keep going because you don't want the other guy carrying your pack or carrying your weight. Because you're hurting or you're feeling sorry for yourself or,
Because, they are beat up too.
They're just as well. And with that small mentality of, the small team mentality, you can push your body really, really far. Probably a little too far sometimes, but they said about, if you give up on your mind, then your body will follow. But if you keep your, a strong mind and a strong no quit attitude, then your body will go a lot longer than you really think it can.
Right.
It'll carry more than you think it can.
What'd you have there, Mark? What were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say, I'd have to imagine, right? And I've never done this exact thing, but you're talking about, just hitting it off right away, and I'd have to think like those shared experiences, whether it's, going through sniper school or, when you're actually, doing the job itself, very few people have done those things. So just from like a relatability, aspect, like I can't relate to that with you. You can tell me a story or I can like think about it, but like you really, I would think, well, number one, probably just because you can't talk about certain things, outside of that group, but like other people just aren't going to get it at the same time.
Yeah. And the humor. That's the funny thing, is that you can talk to a guy you never, ever, it's kind of a weird thing, but it's you talk to people and you're like, you never serve with them, but they went through that same experience, and you're just like, and you make up these, and they know the joke you're talking about, like without even, because they've had that type of experience that you're talking about, or you're just like, you make something and they're like, oh yeah, I remember that one, right? Because everyone's always experienced that part,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or you say something, they know right where it came from.
Yeah.
Right where it came from. So
What? So I'm sure this is probably the most Googled thing about sniper school ever, and I don't know if you can speak to it. But what would you say is the hardest part about sniper school?
stalking, the stalking portion.
So you've got to do, if we go through the things sort of that you have to know, and again, leave out any sensitive things, but you have to go through marksmanship, obviously. You have to go through stalking. And I'd have to presume there's just a gigantic element of just essentially of like playing chess, like moving, figuring out where you're going to be, how you're interacting with, all of the other players on this board.
Right.
Because you are sort of this smaller team that has a big impact on a bigger, so I mean, did I hit on, is that like the top three, or is there 4 and 5? It's, more things than that? Or?
No, and then you have mission planning, but the top two really are the shooting part and the stalking part.
Yeah.
I think you're really your top two. I mean, you have, mission planning, I said, and knowing how to use that team and things like that. So like at the basic school.
Yeah.
But you really learn, and then the thing is too, is that with the job, it's weird because, I mean, the guys that are good at it, I mean, they live and breathe it. It's just not like, oh, I'm coming home, go home that night and you hang the hat up. And that's the really awesome part about it. It's like you literally went home and you grabbed your data cards and you did something to improve yourself. It's I mean, it's when they say it's a lifestyle, it is. It's guys are still, I mean, going home and just repairing everything and prepping everything and reading into it and try to, read in a book, reading a win book or anything. Guys were just not just like trying to, every day, the guys that were really good at it would go home and, like I said, they would live it. They'd live and breathe. And that's all they really cared about.
Which you can't fake.
No, you can't.
I mean, you can sort of like, you can go home and open a book and you can like read the physical words, or you can look at something physically with your eyeballs. But like, there's something very different between doing that and faking it and just being, well, the really good guys do this, and actually getting into it and figuring it out and critical thinking about all the things you're physically looking at. I mean, that.
And the things that to self better, make yourself better, and things that you could fix, to go home and run them through your brain nonstop, and then you're always taking care of gear and just trying to find a way to build a better mousetrap. Your brain's always going, how can I improve? How can I improve our teams? How can I improve myself? Type deal.
Does that extend even into like when you like look at a landscape or something like that? Like, and I was going to ask this question, maybe now is the right time for it, but like even today, like, can you not look at, like, we have the Conservancy out here. Like, wherever you look somewhere, do you automatically go break that down?
No, he did. We were talking about this podcast a while ago, and he said, oh, yeah, you might be able to do it out in the Conservancy out there. He said, well, the only hard part would be when you're coming down the hill, you might, your whole body line might be outlined on the side of the hill or whatever. And, we might be able to, if the person were sitting up here, and it's the next thing I knew exactly how to sneak up on the building. Not that I would do it right, but I knew in theory how to do it.
But I mean, like, is that like almost a constant like affliction? Like you find yourself, you're like, oh, look over there, and you're like, oh yeah, I'd go this way, and
like how you see a deer everywhere.
Yeah.
So the funny thing on that, so yes, and so if I'm hunting a spot, it's I know before that, along with range. Like some people are like, oh, they'll go out and check ranges or whatever. So I'm like, well, I'll sit in there. Like if I sit in a stand, I'm like, all right, if a deer shows up there, I'll make my way down this way or this way to to keep there. But the biggest one that I catch myself doing all the time is driving down the road and find out which way the wind's blowing by the mirage off of the road. and why I'm doing it, I have no idea. I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, we got left or right wind. And I'm like, why am I staring at mirage coming off a road?
Because that's just good information to know, Tony.
I mean, what's it really matter which way the wind's blowing?
You never know when you're gonna have to like pop the e-brake and just rip the 700 over the hood of the car and have to take some shot at who knows what down the street.
I don't know. That's one thing that just nonstop would always be like,
Yeah.
like driving on the road and you're like off that blacktop, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
left right wind.
Well, there's so many things that we could talk to. I know you brought up stalking is the most difficult part. Everybody who listens to this is surely interested in marksmanship. And then we're talking about, mirage and wind reading, all these things that you as snipers have to do. One thing that I found interesting when you talked about sniper school as well was the fact that you guys constantly are having to dope everything utilizing your reticles, right?
Yeah. So there's no laser rangefinders. So
You just you don't even get that.
You mill everything out. After you leave there, then you can use laser rangefinder all you want.
You experience
Really?
the wonders of a push button to do all the job for you.
Yeah, everything's milled out.
I remember because we had this was even a ways back. We had that solo monocular, like the RT with the reticle inside of it, and I remember hearing stories about snipers who would get them and they would literally use them as almost like a toy in a way. It was like when they were bored, they'd just be, I wonder how far away that is, or I wonder how big that is. Like I know it's that far away. How big is it?
Yeah.
And they just look through those things all the time, just practicing.
Yep.
Milling.
Yeah.
Do you still mill much, or now do you enjoy the wonders of a laser rangefinder?
No, the worst part is that, I still, no matter what, like even hunting, I think I shot my mule deer at like 180, right? Mm-hmm. I still camp like 210s. Why I don't know. I just giant 210s. I'm like, but I still had to dial in 210s. I mean, but now I run around. I have the bino, laser rangefinder bino.
Sure.
Yeah, the Fury, and it's awesome. And I have to have that now because I want to know that is exactly that range.
Sure.
I have to know now like exact range per shot, and you can now. I mean that's one of the wonders of the wonderful world of when I first got there. I remember running around with like an aftermarket laser rangefinder because you didn't really have time to mill, type deal. So, but yeah, the evolution of gear is really stepped it up.
Well, I tell you what, the nice thing is though, if we ever get like an EMP or something, you're going to be able to range targets, and I'm not. I'm going to be trying to go to my phone to Google, and it won't work because of the EMP. But I'll be trying to look up, mills and whatever. And I work in an optics company. I'll throw that out there, fully admitting. But yeah, it's probably good to know.
Good to know. And Jim, you guys talk about like the evolution of gear, right? And like you were in for so long, Tony. I mean, heck, when you got in, it's like to think where just laser rangefinders were at then.
Yeah.
Probably somewhat in their infancy, and at least to us, or
on the consumer market for sure.
On the consumer market. What's that evolution of gear looked like? Or equipment, or the stuff you use that maybe you don't use anymore and now you use, or
like first going in, I got an H harness, which was just like suspenders, a belt, and your mag pouches on the side. Why I kept it, I have no idea, but I kept it over the years. But it's the most basic type thing. Like we thought everything back then was really high speed. We had a canteen before we had our Camelbacks. We had a canteen with a straw in it that it was into your cap, and you could drink that out of there. We had that's
high speed.
Yeah, really high speed type stuff.
Flip the cap open as a straw.
We've added the straw.
We've added a straw, everybody.
We had a straw to a canteen.
People are falling out of their chairs. I can't believe it.
Yeah. I mean, it's
a liquid sucking device.
Yeah, and you couldn't.
I don't know. I don't know if you can tell by the straw. Yeah, I'm a sniper.
Yeah.
No, but then just evolution of glues and for making ghillies and for ghillie suits and stuff like that. I mean,
the ghillie suit is something that's so phenomenally interesting to me.
Yeah, it's.
Did you wear one a lot in reality when you're actually going out in missions? Did you wear a ghillie a lot? I feel like some people think that snipers basically live and breathe in their ghillie. Like they go to sleep in it, they wake up in it, they're always running around in it, they're just kind of always in a ghillie.
Mission dictated it.
Yeah.
If you needed it, then you'd be in it. But they're hot.
Oh yeah,
Extremely hot. And then
and you're always trying to adapt it too, aren't you?
Yeah. It's
How
like
does that? I mean, are you literally just plucking things out of the ground and gluing it to yourself?
no, you tie everything in.
Okay.
So you take, the vegetation and you tie that into it because what you need is your natural vegetation of
Sure.
that current location, not I know Mark and I were talking, I told you kind of like on the hill where you'd go from like green to brown. Well, you better change out. If not, you're like just a giant.
How long does
Green and
that
brown.
take, though?
It-
Or how much are you doing? Just your front?
It depends on how much you're being exposed to. So if you know that you need to have your biggest thing's head, shoulders,
Right,
Because you
okay.
don't want to look like. I mean, it's very easy to see head and shoulders, and that's why when you see a lot of good veg jobs, like they call them, they're covering they're covering basically your head and your shoulders completely.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you're trying to make yourself more of a not a box, but you're trying to make it more natural because nothing out there sticks around that's perfectly.
Yeah, break up all your regular lines. Okay.
Well, and I imagine, because all I can do is imagine here, and hopefully this doesn't get too far in text, but like you can't be doing that. Like you can't be like running around going, "Oh yes, that branch over there. I'm gonna get up and go get that."
The perfect branch
Yeah.
is 25 yards away.
Right.
Route selection. So that's like when we're talking about, going from here, point A to point B, and you see it, and then you're like, all right, I'm going to move to that because I need that. And then you don't go in a straight line. I mean,
Okay.
it's you're
Sure.
moving wherever terrain dictates you to move to your advantage.
Now, we've successfully not gone in a straight line at any point in this conversation, but to jump into a little bit of what you're talking about with your route selection, I'm sure, like when you talk about stalking and learning stalking in sniper school and stuff, I'm sure that's part of what you go into a lot is its route selection and you're also, I'm sure the ghillie suits come into play. I guess I have like so many questions around this. But my first question would be, I've seen at least in some shows and videos and movies, they show the sniper school situation. Somebody's sitting down at a truck or whatever, then they got glass and they're looking up into a hill, and you gotta sneak in, take a shot within a certain distance, whatever, not be
Right.
seen.
Yep.
How often did you guys actually do that when you were like actually on missions? I'm trying to picture the landscape of a lot of the conflicts that we've been in, and I'm thinking to myself, well, deserts and towns or sometimes big cities or things like that. And
Right.
it's not like you're shimmering up a wall with a ghillie suit on.
No.
You know,
Yeah.
or,
How do I tie in the sand?
Yeah.
yeah.
No, everything off that is based off of it's really, as it goes back into it again, of like route selection. Everybody rolls into, and even the military, they're like, oh, we you're not sneaking up on a guy, and I'm not going to use the reference, but it's the one where they say, well, your stalking is silly. Well, stalking, the aspect of is not silly. It's an extreme of what you're going to be doing later. But what it does, it really teaches you one thing, and that is patrolling without being detected.
Okay.
So even though you're individually doing it at school, it's just you and you against instructors. In reality, all you're doing is you're teaching, you're proving, to earn that certification, that you can move to an extreme, to where you need to get within. Like we got within, I'm pretty sure like it was. They've moved it slightly now because of things, but it's like within 100 is when I went through.
Yeah.
And you're like, there's no way I can do that, right? There's no way.
Within 100 yards?
Within 100 yards.
Okay.
So, and then take shots and not be detected or whatever. You can,
Yeah.
move up there
And
into that one.
you're not just moving through there by your lonesome.
Right.
You've got a drag bag
Yep.
and a big gun that you got to bring, which I still don't even know how you ever would bend back to get the gun and bring it. I mean, all these things.
Just drag it along with you. But in a drag bag, you just throw in a drag bag and drag it along there with you. But you got to watch overhead movement and all that stuff. Which is, like I said, you're just doing movement. It's like if you were to go out there, and the best way of explaining it is went out antelope hunting, and a few years ago with one of the guys here, and had to do a stalk up on, went 2,200 yards out on this antelope, and so went into the same thing, route selection. So it made things a lot easier because of going through that. Now I'm like, oh, I'm gonna teach us as it's like I'm being observed. So on the hunting side of the house, it's really, really, really helped out.
Oh, yeah.
Especially like out west. I mean, and you're doing the same thing when you guys go out there. You use that sagebrush that's in front of you and move behind the sagebrush. You don't
Right.
Yeah.
move out in the open. It's the same thing with the stalking aspect of it, of school. It's the same thing you're doing when you're doing it. You guys are doing it, you're hunting.
There's
You're
so
doing the
many.
exact same thing.
There's so many.
We do
hunting
have
tie-ins.
the, I'd say by and large, the perk of that, like, you're just trying to get close. You're not going to potentially get shot at.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
like,
yeah. You're not
You-
worried about the mule deer spooking and then bam, bam, bam,
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
So that's a plus.
Right, right.
And you can be not careless, but there's also like a level of like freedom that comes with that.
It's a little bit
Right.
like playing a video game where if you crash your car off a cliff, you can always hit restart.
right.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But-
I mean, the antelope's only going to run off. The animal's going to run off. That's
Right.
about it.
You're
But-
all right.
Yeah, but that's all it really is. Like the
Mm-hmm.
they put the stalking as in you sneaking up on someone, but you're really not. It's just proving that you can patrol to an area undetected.
There's so many hunting tie-ins with that, I feel like, and when you look at the job all together, you think of moving undetected, route selection, having to know ballistics, and being a good marksman. You're basically out there hunting
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
a lot of ways.
Yeah. So
And you were
The most dangerous game.
you were from around here, and I think
Yeah.
you grew up hunting.
yeah.
Did you have many guys in your school or anything like that, or did you see many guys who had never hunted before, and so they were thinking, this is kind of new? Or-
Yeah, did some of
Yeah.
that stuff come more natural to you because you had some of that experience?
I thought I knew about shooting and ballistics until I went to the military, and I shot a lot. Growing up, gosh, I shot. My dad used to have mason jars filled full of 22 shells, and I know that we went through. And we had a single shot 22. My dad had a single shot 22, and I think I went through every single one of them. I felt I probably owe him a lot
Yeah.
of 22 rounds.
Yeah.
But
I mean, like, you could take an activity like even those, deer hunting or squirrel hunting. It's like we're talking about, like, yes, the consequence is less, but you're still having to move through the woods and essentially be undetected.
Yeah.
Right. And there is a consequence. Squirrel runs away. Deer runs away. You
Yep.
know. So like there's I would assume like
Yeah.
a level of training there.
Yeah, there and it kind of goes back and forth, like where when growing up and I did, oh my gosh, I hunted about everything. A buddy of mine, we'd go through and we'd walk through our woods and shoot sparrows, and around the farm shoot sparrows, and they're they're small, a small animal,
Yeah.
and we had plenty of them, so we just get a brick of 22 shells after I ran my dad's probably all out, and we just started shoot sparrows. But the biggest thing I probably pulled reverse back, I remember growing up and sitting for opening day of gun season, and you're there for 2 hours, and you're just like, oh gosh,
Bored.
you're bored. Oh my gosh, so now, myself and a buddy of mine that comes back every year, he is as well. He is a sniper as well, and we will sit in stands all day long. And now it's easy. We're like, it beats the heck out of sitting in a hide for days.
Right.
You're only sitting there for from sundown.
That's
My
one thing
goodness.
that I wanted to talk about, though. Like, and maybe it's tied with mental toughness in some ways, but the like the patience, right?
Yeah.
And and I think about hunting, and for me, sometimes like I can be really patient, and this is probably personality driven too, but I can be really patient in a deer stand because I know, like, yes, I've put a lot of thought into this, and I'm going to go here, and I want to sit here because of the wind. I'm anticipating that they're coming from here because of bedding or food or the rut. It's pinch point, whatever. But once I get to that point, like, I've kind of made my decisions. Like I've pushed my chips in,
Yep.
and I've made that call, right? And now it just comes down to now I got to be patient, right? And
Yeah.
I guess the reward of hopefully killing a deer is enough that I can sit there all day. I mean, sometimes it's uncomfortable, sometimes it's cold,
Right.
sometimes you do get out of the tree. In fact,
Yep.
oftentimes I do, because you're just like, can't feel my hands, can't feel my feet. Like, I'll go warm
Yeah.
up for a little bit and then get back out after, right? But I know for myself personally, like, I can actually be much less patient when I have the option to move, because
Yes.
now there's decisions to be made. Maybe I'm bored. Maybe I'm uncomfortable. Maybe I want to see what happens. And sometimes I even get to a point where I'm impatient, not knowing what the result is going to be.
Mhm.
Like, I just want to see, am I going to get the deer or am I not going to get the deer? Right.
Yeah.
So, like, how does that patience component fit in with being a sniper?
Patience is a big thing, because it's just like deer hunting. If you're not in a stand, you're not going to get an opportunity to shoot.
You
So if you're
miss 100% of the deer that you don't wait for to walk by.
Right. There's
so-
that.
so
Quote, Michael Jordan
so the,
or whoever, Wayne Gretzky or Michael Scott.
all of them. But that aspect of it is the patient side that is for you to focus that long. It is a skill. I mean, it's a skill. I mean, I know guys that you can't get them in a stand for longer than an hour.
Me.
I mean, they just don't. I mean, and I think it based off success too, because like you just said, so on that aspect of it is the pre-planning, right? So you just said you push all your chips in. You know that they're coming up that way, and you maybe did your research, and you have to stay there. It's always that. Oh, just 10 more minutes, right? I mean, 10 more minutes. But when you have to stay there, I mean, you're committed anyway. I mean, the odds of you coming out, I mean, the patience aspect of it is you have to have them.
How do you?
But, like, what about the
for
patience?
days. You're talking about days, and you and
And there's so many
Pretty
times
much-
you don't see anything.
pretty much like one other person.
No, like there's more. But
Okay, there's
but-
more. Anyway.
Yeah, there's more. But yeah, but you're it's the hope, and the thing is too is that you occupy yourself with. There's so much, I mean, there's so many times you went into positions and you're just like, you don't see anything. You're just there. You're like, oh my gosh, like, is anything ever going to show up? Is anything ever going to happen? And it doesn't. And you're like, oh, and then, but because you have to have the mental fortitude of going and doing it again.
Right.
And again and again. Like, oh, the intel says that, this is what's going on. And you're out there like, no, no, it's not. No, it's not. So you have to, and then keep doing that and getting, your intel that you're getting and saying, oh, and knowing that you just, by you being there is helping your unit, at the end of the day. Even if nothing happened, it's not a bad day,
Right.
Like it's not a bad
Right.
day. Just
What-
if nothing didn't happen.
What do you find, looking back now, is the most strange thing you ever did to waste, or not waste, but like take up all that time? I mean, you're having to be observant the entire time, so it's not like you're just
Yeah.
like goofing around. But like, did you ever just count grains of sand for?
I don't. I mean, when you're not looking and you're just sitting, because let's say you're on and you're off, because it's not like you're staring there for days and days and days and days, and you trade off amongst the team and stuff. But you'd be surprised on how you can entertain yourself for that long. It's stupid. I mean, it's really dumb things like, counting things that make. You don't have to count them, but it's supposed to be important because you just remember everything that's out there.
Yeah.
Because you're an intel gatherer is really what your main job is. Shooting second, but you're really out there for intel. But you'd be surprised. Like, it's just silly. Like, I mean, you can get a lot of what they call it, like you're evaluating your life path and all that. You can get a lot of
A lot of soul
Yeah,
searching.
soul searching. There you go. That's what I was like.
There
Well,
you
you
go.
do a lot
Yeah,
of, you,
yeah,
can, you
yeah.
can get a lot of that accomplished out there when there's absolutely nothing else going on.
You ever just
I know-
come back or call your wife or something, and all of a sudden she's thinking to herself, how did you decide to become a monk?
Yeah.
When did it? How did this happen?
Well-
we just talked 1 week ago, and you were totally into being
Yeah.
a farmer.
Yeah.
And then,
Well, I was up to $1 million counting grass.
Yeah.
And then,
It hit me.
you know, it's interesting. I always draw hunting correlations, Jim, just like you draw car correlations. But I do find, like, I'll go on a trip and you just get that time to think. You're removed from your daily life and you come up. I mean, sometimes it can be a life-changing thing,
Yeah.
really, or like, I don't know. It's
Positive.
It's
it was a hunting
Good.
trip, I think, that caused you to decide to go through with that tiny little dog you guys are getting.
No, I was probably gone, and then all of a sudden the decision at home was made to get the dog. It's a medium dog, Jim. It's a medium.
Right, sorry, yeah,
It's a
just
me-
on the edge.
It's a schmedium.
Medium,
Schmedium.
definitely
I think it
schmedium.
will be a schmedium. It's
Um,
gonna be a real nice dog.
but yeah, going back to movies, I know that was one thing that I
Can I ask a
remember-
question on patience, real quick?
Oh
Phil?
yeah, please. Yeah, I was gonna say I remember when I watched the movie Jarhead. I feel like they got into a little bit of the aspect of the fact that being a sniper isn't always like every day you wake up and you're shooting somebody, you know.
There-
And I don't know how the movie may have been terribly inaccurate otherwise, and it's quite likely. But I do feel like I remember watching it when it came out or it was the first time I watched it. And I hadn't heard many people talk about it before, and I was like, I got to the end of the movie and I thought to myself, wait, nothing happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, man, what a bummer,
There's-
entertainment wise. But
that part was probably pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Could've
Yeah.
been.
Yeah. There's the part on that one is like where he's like going down the very beginning. He's like shooter, spot down the table. And he's like, all right, now you can pull out your rifles. And I was like, no, when you go to school, it's not like you're a shooter, you're the spotter, you're the shooter, you're the spotter. And
Yeah, I was gonna ask
every
that.
other one, no, it's you're all going down there for the same thing. You're all, by the time you leave there, you're supposed to be certified and qualified as a sniper. Like it's
Yeah.
not like, oh, you're a spotter forever. You went to sniper school and you can only be a spotter.
yeah,
Gotcha.
Right,
Like
'cause
you
you-
learn both
Yes.
skills.
And,
Okay.
and in reality, of it down there is the train guy. The aspect of it is it's kind of weird. It's like, oh, you're the sniper. He's the shooter. Well, in all retrospect, is like normally the pulling the trigger is easy if you get all the right information.
Sure.
I mean,
Right.
You don't have to. So normally the more experienced guy is actually should be. But it's not as fun, and a lot of times you do your own win calls and things like that. Anyway, you don't really have the role of you don't have the luxury of having someone. So you got to learn to make your own win calls and call your own shots, because that's where it really boils down to. It's not
Okay.
It's not based off of I'm going to get all these because at the end of the day you have to make that shot.
Yeah.
So for the sniper spotter spot is like the spotter normally should be the more experienced person, because they're making all the wind calls, the elevation change data and all that
Gotcha.
stuff that goes into it. Yeah.
The
What was your question about patience?
It was just like the patience to not move when you can move, or is just the incentive of not being found or spotted like enough that you're like, yeah, I just can't, like I have to go slow, or I have to
Yeah.
like if you have like this goal or this destination
Mm-hmm.
of where you're trying to get to, like I know like sometimes almost like the closer I get, I should be slowing down, but I want to speed up.
Yeah.
Is that normal?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a patience aspect, because you're just like, oh yeah, if I hurry up, I can get there, or I need to get there really fast. But then you realize it's like deer. They come around underneath the stand. You're like, oh, you swing over on them. Well, I had one a few years ago that came out of nowhere, and it's like, so I swing. So I'm using patience, and I'm swinging over to it, and I get right on it, and the deer goes, gone. So if I would just sort of swung over him, and then you go look back and go, what if I swung over really fast? Would I have gotten him, or would you notice me swinging over him fast?
Yep.
Like for that one, is like I base everything off of like movement, especially on that one. Animal wise, is terrain. I mean, there's certain times you can walk behind a hill. I mean, so on that one. So when I first went down there, so I was based out of 29 Palms. So 29 Palms is just a desert. So
Yeah,
all
okay.
we did up there was we just had sagebrush that we were behind. I remember doing the very first stock down in Camp Pendleton where the school was, and it's down there. It's in California, it's a lot of vegetation. I remember like I first started off up there, we'd have to like belly crawl the entire time up. Whereas in 29 Palms, we went down to Pendleton and first stock, they tell it that you're under observation a certain amount of time. And I remember this guy like walking by me, and I was like, he is so going to get caught. And I'm like, he didn't get caught. I mean, we were up in 29 Palms. If you went above, skull dragging, you're going to get caught every time. And here this guy's like walking by me, I'm looking at him, I was like, oh my gosh, he's gonna get caught. Why is he doing that? And all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, you can do that here. So it was just based off of your terrain. I mean, and I learned a lot down there when I went through there. Is like that you can actually do that and get away with it. Same thing as the hunting side is that all your terrain dictates. How fast can you walk because of leaves. Going through there.
Okay.
And it depends on your route. Your route selection on that one. So yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's because you want the result to be. You want the more positive or the best result possible of you getting that animal or surviving. So it takes a little bit of either or.
I gotta ask a question that we probably should have asked a while ago. But what was it for you, Tony, that made you want to be a sniper? Were you like, I love sneaking around on like in the woods, or I love shooting stuff, or
No, so
lone wolf man?
no, I enjoy the team concept. But they what got me was, and this is I still have it at my house. So before I joined, I had a medical condition I couldn't join because I was going to join National Guard, and I went down there and I had a small, nothing really big. I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but so. I couldn't join then. So I went down and I was always, enjoyed, the Vietnam snipers. Like always read all their books, every book I possibly could get on it. And I was really fascinated by a lot of things that they had. But the biggest thing was picking your own destiny type thing, because that's the way they kind of ran around, that type of deal. And then I went down to Recruiter, and Recruiter, I still have this thing after so many years. It was out of a Leatherneck magazine, which is a Marine magazine. And then on the back of it, it's a sniper set up with his sticks, and he's just completely veg up. And I enjoyed the hiding aspect of it, and didn't really know what it was. And for much of it, I walked in, I was like, and then Recruiter comes up and I was like, hey, I can't join. I said I was already turned down, and he's like, oh, so they got me in and went through when I went all my medical piece, and they came back and hey, it's normal, okay. So I got to go in, and then from there I really started. That's the reason I wanted to go in. I wanted to go in and be a sniper, and then I went through one screener. Did not make that one. It was tough. It was, and it really set me up. Then after that, I really trained hard to get back into that platoon, to go do it. And it's kind of a goal. Then it's like one of those things where, like, I'm not gonna quit. It really taught me then there of mental fortitude of keeping a goal in mind and getting it. And then I saw how they worked, and I really became friends with quite a few of the guys that were in the platoon, and I saw their aspect of it, and that made me want to do it more. I mean, it was just one of the things like, nope, at the end of the day, I'm gonna do it. And I just wouldn't take no as an answer. So I just kept pushing myself to get better and better and better and stronger, and things like that, and endurance wise, because it's an endurance game. Yeah, it's just an endurance game. At the end of the day, it's mental and it's endurance. So
you guys carry a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I remember you saying there's some people in your platoon where they were carrying almost more weight than they actually weighed themselves.
Yeah, we had one of them, Jesse. That, oh my God, that guy could carry a lot of weight.
It's like an ant.
Yeah, he was strong. He was strong. He was never his mental fortitude was, he just wouldn't give up. He never would. I mean, he's awesome. But yeah, and the thing is too, is what makes him, and you see a guy carrying that much weight, you're like, oh, I'm carrying that too. I can carry that much weight.
Right.
And you build off of each other of saying, if he can do it, I can do it. And he's not going to quit. I'm not going to quit. And back and forth. Really, we have the same mindset. So it turns into like, oh, because he's probably thinking the same thing of like,
Right.
well, if he's doing it, I can do it, and I'm not going to quit. So it makes your team better.
Yeah.
Because no one has a quit mentality.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the aspect of one, and especially when I saw and how much people they cared about their job and doing their job the best of their ability and putting, having faith in the person that you're working with, really made it more appealing to me. And, and knowing that they were just a really small, really tight knit community that is, like family. It's when you say brother, it really is like you feel like it's your brother. I mean, you know more about them than you really do a lot of your family.
Sure.
And you know everything about them. I mean, you spend so much time together. You know literally everything about them when you're still learning things about your brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And you feel like, oh, like you know their parents or sisters and brothers and where they went to school, what their favorite jobs were, what they did as a first job, what they had as a first car. I mean, he knew everything about them. So which that part was really awesome.
That's cool.
Of it, yeah.
We'd be remiss to not talk about the shooting stuff.
I know.
Too. Like the actual marksmanship of it. I think this is the part that's probably, in addition to the being super sneaky in a ghillie suit and stuff, but this is the part that when people think of a sniper, they think,
right,
this guy can shoot.
Yeah.
So that's not undue, I guess, sort of attention in that regard. I mean, you got to be able to shoot to be a sniper,
or you
right?
don't pass school,
right? What's now? Maybe I don't even want to ask that question, like what the level of accuracy required is. But how good of a shooter were you going in, and then how much do you feel like you improved when you actually went through sniper school? Did you?
Because it's a school, so you're learning.
Yeah.
I mean, and before I went, I felt, like I said before, I felt like I knew a lot, right? Then I got there and I didn't know probably half as what I thought I knew.
I mean, they're teaching you about the mechanics of your firearm. They're teaching you
Yep.
about ballistics, data.
Yeah, I mean, shots really did shots, precision shots to 1,000, and then you get there and you're like, wow, that's a long ways. Then you throw wind into it. Then you actually have to hit the target, or
Right.
you don't pass. So that part, I mean, I had great instructors that were down there when I went through that really were able to break it down. They're shooting MOA, and I went through. We had the Nerdle, straight
Right.
fixed 10 power optic, which today's standards is
Right,
not that big of a deal.
Some people now would say, wait, you
Yeah.
need more than 10 to shoot to 1,000.
1,000. But no, for that one is, you go down there and you shoot 1,000. You're like, gosh, the first few times you're like, God, it's a really long ways, and you got to shoot an 18 by 36 inch target.
And you were shooting it at that time with a 308, right?
Yeah, still shooting. Still, I mean, they're still doing it.
Yeah.
Just this day and age, just still shooting 308. So it's
My gosh, one step above muskets.
Yeah.
Loading it, one step above loading in the front.
Yeah. There's other calibers, 3-in-1 mags and 50 cals, but your primary is your 308, the one you really had to know. But it's a round that is wonderful at teaching you wind.
Yeah.
And you go down there, you shoot about 1,000 rounds during the course, so you get really proficient with it, and it'll surprise you in how well it will do, and not only that, it's how well those guns do for as much as they're fired.
Yeah. Talk about wind for a little bit, because I think I don't think, but I know gravity always works the same way. It's just always there and the same every time. Wind can really screw with you
Oh yeah,
and wind up throwing you off when you know otherwise. In theory, you should have been dead on.
Mhm.
So you guys are trying to read it, and as we know, and I think we've talked about in other podcasts in the past, you might have wind at your muzzle, which is important to know. It's the first influencing factor side to side on your bullet as soon as it leaves the barrel. But then as you look down range, and you were talking about reading mirage, and I'm sure depending on where you are, you can read some of the foliage and stuff. Wind can change and swirl around anywhere in any direction at any time, and it can change on a dime too.
right.
How what was that process like learning to read it? And is it all just are you using any? I'm guessing if you guys aren't using laser rangefinders, you're probably not using wind readers either.
They are now.
Oh, they are.
I
Okay.
was not when we went through. We were not. It was all off
You just
of.
licked your finger and stuck it in the air.
Well, that's the thing is everybody and you get everybody's thought process on it and there's so many theories back and forth. Everybody's like, oh, where do you grab wind from? Where do you grab wind from? And my thing is, I can grab it at me, and I know what it's doing at me, but you don't know it's down range, like you just said.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked a guy one time. I said, and he's a accomplished shooter. I said, how do you read wind? He goes, where do you get it from? He goes, well, I'm gonna everybody says, oh, once you lose bullet leaves, you have your fastest, so it's not really that big of a deal where you're at because you're on your major most muzzle velocity coming off that right there.
Yeah.
Go down range, you got less muzzle velocity behind it, so it's going to be able to be pushed around a little bit. And I got one time he told me, he's like, and I use this when I taught the marksmanship portion. I said, this is what I've been taught because there's unless you have a guy down with a wind meter down range, you really don't know what it's doing down range. And I said, cause I asked a guy, Stuart, I said, hey, what do you read wind? He goes, I do it me. He goes, think if you go in a bowling, you're going bowling, and because everyone's done it. And I said, you get up there and you go to throw, you set the ball up in the same machine, so someone can say, well, you threw it harder. You put it in a machine, and you walk up, and you have a mechanical hammer that is on there, and the ball comes out and it rolls down, and right off the get-go, you reach up and you tap that ball with a hammer to the side. Well, as soon as you do that, it is gradually floating
Right.
to where it starts moving it off path. And he said, now you take that same hammer and you take it 2/3 away down or 3/4 away down to your target. You tap it there. You may still hit some of the pins. Mm-hmm. So he says that's why he goes, I grab everything off of where I'm
I get
at.
it. Yeah.
On from where I can judge it and test. He said from me.
Mm-hmm.
It's from me, not 2/3 away down where you're supposed to be judging it at.
Yeah. It's like mega exaggerated situation.
Yeah.
If you were right in front of the target, like a foot away from the target,
You
and all of a
still
sudden
have
the
a chance
bullet
of
got
hitting.
deflected, 30 degrees off, you're probably still going to hit it.
Yep.
Whereas 30 degrees off from the muzzle, I mean, it's
It's already starting on that. It's already starting on that path.
Yeah, interesting.
And the thing is too is that now you have the wind meters that you can, exactly what it is. You
it's coming
can't
from, yeah.
be like, hold on, let me run down range real quick. Stand right there.
Yeah.
Holding up your wind meter and be like, I'll be back in a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, go for it.
I was going to ask, have accuracy standards gone up as far as like pass fail because of technology? It's like, okay, now you got a wind meter. Now okay, guys, that's basically
question.
cheating.
No, it's because you still have to. It's like having a calculator. I mean, it's all it really is. I mean, if you take it and you're like, should standards go up? Because that'd be like, because when we change bullets, and we went from like 168 to 175 grain bullets, it's such a better 175 is such a better bullet to 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
The accuracy standards never had to change for that one, but I mean, it makes sense why you definitely think like, oh, hey, you have it's like you having a calculator, doing simple math, Yeah, I just never really thought about that one on there, but it hasn't changed now.
I guess a hit's a hit.
Yeah, I mean, hit's a hit.
Now, if wind at you is so important, then why do you still need to learn to read Mirage and stuff like that? You know what I mean?
So, because you still have to put that in as a factor. I mean,
Right.
I don't discount anything going down range. I mean, I pull it at me what I've known, because you get a lot of times you look down range and you have Mirage, and the Mirage, you don't know how far the Mirage is at. So if you have a small berm in front, and that in your Mirage level, you're looking through that, and you have that Mirage going right there, you're only able to see into that Mirage. So you're thinking you're looking 1,000 yards, you're only looking 300 yards down range.
You're looking at the image of something 1,000 yards away at 300 yards.
Yep, exactly. That's well played. That's actually well said. Because you're looking at, you're thinking that you're seeing what you're seeing, and you're like, oh, that's 1,000 yards. You're like, nope, it's 300. It's and then the wind's going the opposite way when you're down there. And the only way you're really noticing if you're right or wrong is you pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And if you're wrong, you're wrong. But you just get better at it.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think all that stuff is very interesting.
And wind is so tricky. It is.
It is.
Elevation is kind of a given anymore. but especially for a repeatable optic and and everything's on there. It's this day and age is like it's not even a thing really anymore.
Yeah.
It's you never hear someone like, oh, I had way too much elevation. Well, if you had the exact laser, like we're talking about the laser rangefinder, and you hit the target and you already have your data or you have a Kestrel, normally that Kestrel's almost dead on. Up
It's
and down.
true. Usually, if you miss high or low, it's because you had something fudged up with the range.
Yep. Yeah, anymore. I mean, with today's ammo and ballistics and all that, I mean, and with those, those wind meters and heck, even apps, you're on your phone, you pull out your phone, you get your app on it, and they're, I shoot, shooting a lot of PRS, like very rarely is you're ever like, oh, a high or low. It's you're either your right or your left.
Well, and then go.
Oh, I was going to say, did you get yourself to the point where, let's say you milled the target, or then you did get to the point where you're laser range finding it, you knew, boom, that's how I know how much to dial. Do you get to know your rifle so well where 370 yards, I know what to dial for that. Right off the bat, you don't have to consult your ballistics calc and your.
Yeah, it's and it gets stuck in your brain like 500 3.2. I mean, out of our the guns, it's like holy crap. Now it's changed because of they shorten the barrels and stuff like that. But
okay.
Out of my guns, 3.2. Like it's stuck in your brain so much, and not only that one, we could at the school you'd see that like at 1,000, like the guns would start off at like 10.8 mils. And then if I knew that the gun was going bad, is if you, or was I was above 11. If I was like an 11.1 to 11.3, I knew that the barrel was starting to go. Like it was crazy. Like you kind of just know the guns well enough as you instructed down there. You just knew the guns that well.
Somebody comes up to Tony and says, "Oh, let's get a bore scope down there." And Tony goes, "This is my bore scope."
No, you're just down there a lot, and you're really fortunate. That was a nice thing about being the instructor down there too. Is gosh, you learn so much. I mean, you learn a lot from. I mean, you do. I mean, it's like it's life. It's you learn a lot from other people's mistakes. And you get to be down there every day, and you get to read wind every day. But you talk about the wind thing. It's something that if you don't continuously do, you lose it. I mean, you do.
That's right.
It used to be where you pick up a wind meter and be like, all right, it's 10 mile an hour. No, it's 8. You look up, yep, it's 8. And now I'll be happy if I get within 2 mile an hour. But that wasn't acceptable. I mean, because you'd run back and forth with the other guys out there. You'd be like, hey, what do you get for mile an hour? That's the thing is too. You'd sit there and at home and like. Guess wind. You're not. I mean, like I said, it's an evolution of just continuously trying to get yourself better to be like, all right, you pull out a wind meter and be like, all right, it's this. You can feel it. Yep, I'm right or wrong.
That stuff, little things like that you take for granted can go quickly. I think people probably look at somebody who was a sniper and thinks like, oh yeah, they got all that stuff just honed like a sharp edge forever. But I mean, even think about. When I've gone on trips where you fly somewhere and then you're getting Ubers everywhere and you come back after a week and you get in your car and you're thinking to yourself, I almost forgot how to drive in a week, push on the brake a little too hard, and you sling yourself forward or you push on the accelerator a little too hard and wow, I'm embarrassed.
Yeah, for sure.
You talk about, Mirage, reading wind, we're talking about reading wind and, obviously, wind meters, Kestrels, things like that, but also using Mirage, but how do you deal with Mirage as far as like your image shift or like, how accounting for that downrange when it looks like your crosshairs are bouncing around the target, but nothing's moving?
Turn the power down.
Okay.
Turn the power down and it'll
magnification.
Turn the magnification down. Play with the parallax. Like I would just, and that's funny that we were just shooting what you guys know Jim C. So we're down shooting his match, and he had a stage up where he had put targets into the tree line, and he kind of gave you generalities of where they were. It was a lot of fun. Gosh, it was awesome. And you had to find these steel targets that were hidden in just general location or whatever.
Sounds like the Vortex Extreme.
Oh my gosh, it's fun. It was a lot of fun. But I just sat there and that's what I did. Turned power setting up and down, played the parallax, and they just at first you couldn't see them. You just tweaked that parallax and boom, like they started showing up.
Interesting.
So
that's cool.
Yeah, it's one of the things where I mean, even out west, everybody's like, "Oh, turn that magnification up, turn it up, I get that." And, we're talking about that 10 power wasn't so bad because you really couldn't see the Mirage that much at 10 at a grand.
Wasn't enough to almost screw you up.
Right.
Huh.
So sometimes more power really isn't all that.
It is
isn't-
pretty neat
isn't
how that
beneficial.
Parallax can do that. I mean, you look at the Golden Eagle rifle scope too that
Yep.
Ian's talked about, and you've got that. Especially when you put that aperture on it that reduces down the objective size, but you roll through the parallax. And I remember seeing it the first time because anytime you tell somebody, oh, there's all this Mirage out there, I mean, you can kind of look and you can see, it looks a little funny out there.
Right.
And then you look through the scope, and on certain days it's very evident. But sometimes I remember he was standing next to me and he put his hand on the parallax knob while I was looking through, so that way I didn't have to fudge around with it, and I was just looking through the scope, and then he just rolled it, and all of a sudden you could see these different levels of parallax not parallax, I'm sorry, different levels of Mirage come in and out of focus, and you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, it's like ghosts or something.
Yep.
It's this world that you can't see until you get it in focus, and then it's there, and then it's out. Next thing.
It's like bullet trace. Once
Yeah.
you first see it, you're just like, oh my gosh, that was amazing.
Right.
Like, what was that? Oh, that's a bullet.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. And then after that, you can see it that's a nice thing. It's once you see it once, you continuously see it because you know what you're looking for.
It's true.
And that's the part of the parallax piece too.
Yeah.
Once you know, it's one of them skills. You're like, oh, got it. Now I know how to fix that problem. So yeah.
We've talked a fair amount about like getting in position to take the shot and kind of like, maybe that what it takes to be able to make a shot like that. What happens like after the shot? That's one thing that I think about. Like we have suppressors now, so like a good thing, right?
Yeah.
That's going to conceal, I guess, the sound that you make when you break that shot. But I almost feel like at least what I picture in my head is like, okay, like, well, obviously somebody's been, if the shot was executed correctly,
Somebody's probably on the ground.
Yeah, something's been affected by that.
Right.
People have been alerted. There is a sound even with a suppressor.
Mm-hmm. That's where the hunting similarities go away because you're not going to walk up to him and be like, did we get it?
Right.
Yeah.
So like, what happens? What happens then? Like, because like now, like my anxiety is actually going up just thinking about that.
Yeah. Again, like so everything. That's the cool part is like trying to think. So after any shot's taken, it's really terrain dictated. And like I said, the majority of the problem with taking a shot is that normally the mission will be over because you just said it. People know you're there. So
Okay, yeah.
you're a lot of times, and that's the thing of getting into a good position to where we talked about, the movement into position, staying hidden in the position, not doing silly things that get you a compromise, and compromising into it. You're better off doing like the shot really is almost your last. If you have air overhead, you're going to use air. I mean, it's because no one knows where it came from.
Okay. Right.
Or mortars or indirect fires and things like that. So your last shot, your shot is basically your last. I wouldn't say last resort because it's going to happen. You're going to have to do it. But getting in and out of there afterwards is so terrain. I mean, did the area get flooded? Did it? Are you going to stay there for a while? Did they know where the shot came from? And you know right away if they know. You just know. I mean, if you have other ones that are there, or return fires and things like that. So, but getting out of there is so trained. I mean, it is. And I'm not really trying to hee-haw around it, but it's based off of, because you said you're not walking up to an animal and being like, yeah, we got him.
Yeah.
High five. Yeah.
Yeah. High fives around. But if you're able to get out, you get out. And if you have to stay there, then you're staying there if you're not in danger. Yeah, best way of saying it. Yeah, I mean, it's you leave when you can because the chances of getting other things happening in that area are more likely. But if you have to stay, you got to stay, and that's where the patience, and it's like going and you're in your stand and a deer's staring right at you, and you're like,
run.
is he? Can he see me?
Right.
But then he goes back down to eating again. You're like, wait, I just thought that deer saw me. You know, and like it's the same type thing. I was like, when you're compromised. You
Right.
know when you're compromised.
Right.
But yeah, it's
not-
so trained. It's just so mission different.
I so badly want to be like, have you ever been compromised? What did you do? But I feel like I can't do that.
Yeah, tell me about the time you were compromised.
Yeah.
yeah.
I get like Tony talking about like when you've been compromised, like that moment, like again, like I'm just like, oh, I don't like that feeling at all. It's not even my feeling, and I don't like it.
Yeah, it's not a great feeling.
Mm-hmm.
No, and you just know when you know. You just, you're like, oh, yeah, it's like deer.
That
Yep,
happened.
Yep. Yeah.
How far is an average? Like I feel like we talk about like sniper like 1,000 yards plus 1,000 yards 2,000 yards.
Basically, if you're not taking a shot over 1,000 yards, you
Right.
must not be a sniper, right?
Which I would think is like, again, when you talk about like the egress portion, like I would assume distance is your friend, but like what's realistic?
So distance is your friend, okay? But also, if you miss, people shoot back.
Yeah.
Again, yeah.
So it's
your target runs away and gets harder to find.
or goes finds buddies.
too.
So, and not only that one is, like I said, I hate balance on that one, but it's based off of what you just talked about as well.
Just the-
wind.
It's got to be.
Okay.
Wind.
Oh.
I mean, if you got a lot of wind, are you going to really risk
Okay.
your compromise for that shot?
Yeah.
Is it better off doing something else?
As good as you are as a sniper, you're not God. You can't.
Correct.
You don't know every single piece of wind and every single piece of information between you and the
Yeah.
target that will give you a perfect shot every time.
Yep. It's
You guys are trained to be the best, but the best is still not going to ever be perfect.
no. I mean, everyone makes mistakes, but you have to be. And I think I've heard it before. I think maybe Steve Rinaldo said it. It's like you never make a shot where you're like, I wonder. Well, not saying you wouldn't, but it's one of the ones where like, how does he say it again? He goes something along the lines of,
You don't want to be surprised if
surprised
you hit
if you hit it.
Yeah,
There you
don't
go.
want to
Yep,
take the shot and
that's-
instantly think, I wonder if I hit it.
it. I wonder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Steve Rinaldo said that one. He's like, I never want to be the guy. It's like, oh, I hit that. You should have been like, oh no, I know I hit it, or I have a lot of confidence that I can make that shot.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying you don't take extended shots when you're gonna, and if you have it's your only opportunity and you don't have anything else out there, of course you're gonna take that shot.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, when you're suppressed and it's terrain, it's so trained. It just terrain and mission and area different. Yeah, for sure.
We sort of alluded on one thing, but I know when I've talked to other folks that have been in the military in the past, it's kind of funny sometimes when people talk about people in the military or equipment that the military uses. It sort of gains this allure to it as though it is, I mentioned like the person is God that can do no wrong. The equipment is made out of unobtainium. It can never go bad. It can never break. It can never have any issue. I'm sure you at times ran into issues where either somebody goofed up or equipment didn't work the way it was supposed to work. And I mean, that happens, right?
Oh, I mean, yes. I mean, everybody's like, oh no, it's military grade. So it doesn't really mean the best, strongest, or whatever the deal is. But it's but the guns we got are, they're good. I mean, for the abuse that they can take is, you're just like, how does that still hold up? But they're really good systems. They are, and they're a blast. I mean, they'll take up 10,000 rounds on a barrel.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
That's cool.
they're a great tool. I mean, they're good. I mean, everything that most of the things that we have. I mean, and like you said, for the evolution, it's game so much better. I mean, my first got in was a flak jacket. We had a flak jacket, like you see the Vietnam. The guys that had no shirt on and they had their flak jacket on. Going through there. I mean, that's what we had in the beginning, and now we have plate carriers and that are really, really good.
Yeah.
And the armor down there are awesome. So, but it is the evolution of them. When I first got in, we were shooting MOA. I went to school, and now we're shooting mills. That evolution's and then to transfer that over is like now I just shoot mills all the time. And it's just so much. To me, it's an easier system, but it's just it's just you look back over the years, you're like, all right. Now I go through I got out, I went through all my gear, and I'm like, like I said, the H harness. I'm like, how did I make this work? You
Right.
know, like, and then now we have Camelbacks that you can have water source. Before you had 2 canteens, that always
With
smelt a mold.
straws, don't
Well, we had
don't sell
only
it
one.
short.
I only had one of them that had a straw system on it.
Yeah, you can't just give everybody
Yeah,
all of the straw thing. Yeah.
yeah. No, you buy them, and that's how It's so simple. Like it just so.
Yeah. What
that's
was it like
like-
switching to mills? Had you shot mills before?
No. I went.
Somebody was like, "Hey, there's this thing that's way easier than the thing you've been using your entire life," and you were like,
Well, no, that was the weird thing. So shooting MOA mine like for my entire life, and then all of a sudden, I went to go teach, and at that time they're just transferring over to mills, and I went to the range, and the instructor out there was like, "Hey, tell me about these mills thing," and so he's like, okay, well they take a shot, and like we're both looking through spotting scopes, and I said, how far is that? And he goes, 1.2. I said, well, what if we move back to, we're milling it out, and it's 1.2, and he's like, I said, well, what if we move back to 700? He goes, if you mill it at 1.2, it's 1.2. And I was like, doesn't make any sense because we're moving farther back. It's like MOA. You change a one MOA is six inches. At 600, and at 7, one MOA is 7 inches. That's 700 yards. And I'm like, doesn't make any sense to me. He's like, no, Tony, mills are mills. And that's the thing. So he goes, if that's what you measure out, that's it at every distance. He goes, mills are mills.
you were doing the whole like
conversion.
MOA to inches thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So you're thinking you're always multiplying whatever it is. Yeah. So you're
Into mills.
700 yards.
It can't be 1.2.
One MOA is 7 inches, and
Yeah.
one MOA is 1 inch at a certain. Yeah.
So it was all stuck in my head of MOA, and then I get to mills. I'm like, no, that's not possible. And he's like, no, it really is. So we moved back, and it took a little bit for me to believe, that it was still 1.2. If I measured out 1.2 at 700, it was, and I measured out at 1.2 at 600.
Were you guys previously, if you would ever be talking about something like if somebody missed or something, I would use my mill reticle and I'd say, you're 0.2 off to the right. Would you guys say something along like you're 2 3/4 inches off to the right? So
No, I make the correction. So if you
I
say
get it.
aim left shoulder, you still or left edge or whatever the deal is to make the
Okay.
correction. Because remember, the Nerdle it's 10 power. It's MOA turrets, but it is a mill reticle inside.
Oh, because it was
Right.
the mill dot.
Yeah,
Oh, man.
gosh.
Now I'm getting twisted up.
yeah. So and I was one of the ones that in the beginning was like when they said, yeah, we're changing to mills. I was the guy that was like, this is so stupid. We should be staying in inches, because it's so much easier. And then we get it, and I'm like, this thing is really, really, really easy to run. I mean,
Yeah.
it's made all your corrections so much easier. Just look at your grid,
Yeah, you just look at the reticle,
Yeah.
and then you just dial whatever the reticle
Yeah.
tells you into the turrets.
and you're already doing that in the first place because you're already
It's like
learning to mill
magic.
things out. Yeah,
Right.
I mean,
It does make sense.
What an experience that must have been.
yeah, it was. That was like the hardest part of like it was the believing that it was like, no, that's what that really is. And you're like, no, it's not possible because we're moving back.
Right.
We're moving forward. It can't be the same.
Right.
No, if you mill it out 1.2, it's 1.2. If you mill it out 3.3, it's 3.3. It doesn't really matter. And you're just like, it literally blew my mind when it first was like, I was like, there's no way. It's impossible. And then shooting how the Nerdle set up too is like, it's got fine tuning. Because it's kind of a BDC BDC turrets on it, kind of. So it has a coarse and a fine. So you'd be like, if you're shooting a 600, you just dial top to like 6, but you might be like 6 plus 1, 6 minus 1 on the turret on the bottom, and so that just you're basically it was BDC'd, but it wasn't really BDC'd because there was so much difference. Like you take a scope now and you put one of them on there, and you can dial, let's say 3.2 mils, and the next one will be 3.2 mils. With these scopes, they may or may not be. Not everyone's the same. It's kind of
They give you a little bit of room
There's
for
a little
it.
bit of
Should be
fudge.
6.
Exactly.
Just in case, here's a couple extra little adjustments for
But
you.
it's military grade.
Yeah. Hey,
Good
I
point,
mean,
Mark.
they were well built. I will say that one. They were.
That's what-
they're
yeah, that's what it sounded
heavy.
like.
They're super, super heavy.
Interesting.
Super, super heavy. I mean, it's like I don't know. I've heard that. This, again, we're gonna go like a folklore piece. I heard the original owner came out to North Carolina and drove. This is the rumor that drove a nail into a post and then put it back on the gun and used it with the nurdle. So that's I've been out there and I've not seen this nail. So it could have been. I mean, it could have happened. I mean, I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying. But they are. I mean, there was a joke like you can take the scope off, pound 10 steaks in, and put it back on the gun. I mean, it's heavy. It's heavy, but
yeah.
but it's what we had. It was the item. You know, it was it's advanced technology, right? I mean, been around for a long time.
Well, and like you said, the durability component probably can't be overstated, like as far as what you guys would need.
Right.
So super important.
Then you got that Razor 5-20 on your gun.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I wanted to talk
I remember
about.
seeing some pictures of that thing.
Yeah.
Like when first focal plane maybe came into play.
Yeah. Yeah. That was again, it rolled into like, no, because I mean, I was used to like, I had others out there that, you know, were second focal plane and you're just like, no, but it made just a technology piece. If somebody didn't ever have to shoot that technology, probably wouldn't see the evolution of it. But then when you see it as like, you know, even the 10 didn't have a side parallax. That nerd was not a side parallax.
Right.
Straight up focus, probably at
Straight
100
up.
yards.
At 300.
Oh, 300,
300.
yards. Okay, got
Okay.
it. Well, they're snipers, so
Yeah.
300 yards.
So, but
right.
it was like you look at it now, you're like, there's not a single long range scope out there that doesn't have a side parallax for long range.
Right.
I mean, it's a standard.
Like, do you look at guys getting into the game now and like where you're like, I mean, it's kind of
And
one of
they're
those things. You're just
I
like,
have to have 25 power.
right. Like, you know, kids now, they grow up with a cell phone. Like the cell phone
Yep.
is the phone, right? And you're like, man,
Yeah.
Yeah.
rotary dial,
Get a landline.
never had to
punk.
deal with
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Try to dial up.
Yeah.
Answer the phone and
LTE.
say it's for so and
So-and-so.
so.
Or you don't even know who's calling.
Right.
Like you're just like,
Hey, you just pick it up. You don't know who it's
Hello?
going to be.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've really removed like the surprise component. Like,
Yeah, now you pick up your phone and go, oh, Mark, what's up, man?
yeah.
You used to say, hello, this is Jimmy.
Or
Don't say that
better
anymore.
yet, the one of remembering people's actual home numbers.
Right?
I still remember my buddy's home number, landline.
Yeah.
I memorized. I'd say
Right.
it out loud, but you don't need to call them.
Yeah.
No. Is this Jim's buddy?
Yeah. This Jim
Yeah,
buddy, he gets a lot of phone calls today.
Probably you brought that landline probably.
Yeah.
Who knows,
them-
me?
them-
It is just the technology aspect of it. Yeah.
But anyway, yes, I'm sure going back to the sniper stuff, I'm sure that you get a lot of that going on.
Kids these days with their Kestrels and first focal plane scopes. In my day,
Yeah, I know. I'm
now
all
you
I'm all
use it.
about I'm all about the technology aspect
Yeah.
of it. I'm all about it. I'm not the guy who's like, oh, you got it so much easier, you know.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, it is and then especially shooting it on the PRS side, you know, it's a needed item. I mean, it's a very useful item. But now, I mean, back then you'd have to be like memorize all your data, and you're like, oh gosh darn it, you know. But
Nowadays, it seems as though you have less excuses, really.
yeah, that's for sure. Like it's like, what did you? Oh, you didn't pull. Oh, you're being lazy and didn't pull your Kestrel out. Oh, okay. I understand how you missed. You know,
Right.
that's on me.
like I thought it was this, thought it was that. No, for sure. No, technology is awesome.
Awesome.
It's evolved.
When God, I've got so many questions, Jim.
I know,
I know
there's so
we're,
many.
we're going long, but
I have one more. You throw out one.
I'm
more.
gonna throw out like what I've got, maybe two more.
All right. Fine.
Like when are you guys getting the call? Like as far as like and I don't know if you can or can't speak to like kind of, I guess you know how that works, but like is it very certain things, or are you always there for support, or it varies probably? terrain? It's probably terrain, Jim.
No,
Or wind.
Or wind.
if you have an individual, there's always work to be done. Is kind of the best way of saying it. So that even if you're not in direct support, you can be in indirect support of anything going on. So there's always, I mean, my thing is, wouldn't you always like having almost like we call it a guardian angel, watching over your shoulder as you're going, as the normal infantry side would be out and about. We'd definitely be providing support if possible. Even if you have a really good commander that trusts you, the ones in charge of the battalion commander's in charge of the platoon, and he trusts you. And we were just talking about this the other day with a buddy of mine. I was like, I've had some awesome ones that were all about support. Like, we're going to use you in every way we possibly can. And those guys and all you do is you just want to make them look good. I mean, at the end of the day, if you had a good commander that was willing to put the faith in you and trust in you that you could accomplish the job, number one, and bring guys back and make it safer for them to go out and do their job, you want to do your best to make him look good. That was the biggest thing of like, if he would allow us to work, we did our best to make sure that we did work really hard, and we had awesome platoons over the years. I mean, awesome dudes. I mean, you look back and especially like when you have to get out, you're just like, God, I worked with some really, really guys you just can't wait to talk to again. I'm probably the world's worst on reaching out and talking to people because I hate bothering people, but it's like, but the nice thing is, like you talked about earlier, is like you pick up the phone and it's like you never, I mean, you work so tight together that you never even skip a beat. I mean, it's like you swear you just talked to them, 2 weeks ago, and all that. But yeah, that's the aspect of it. It's like if when would you go out? We go out all the time. I mean, even if you're doing support, reconnaissance is a big one. Trying to gather intel for someone else to act on that was direct. For them to go into, that was trying to make everything as safe as you possibly could. So there's always work to do. So you go out every day. I mean, if you weren't, we were at one time where if we were not out in support, we were back prepping for the next day and supporting the teams that were out. So you're constantly working as you're there. I mean, even if you weren't outside of the wire, you're still doing stuff. I mean, even as simple as maintaining radios. So you're talking to them back and forth, gathering intelligence and giving it up to the battalion for further action. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's always work to be done. There's always work to be done. Like there's always something that we could do. Always. Something.
Nice.
Very cool.
What's your second one, Mark? Mine's kind of a closer one.
Well, this is just, I don't know. This popped in my head. Like, have you ever been out and about, and maybe you were stalking? I think this would maybe primarily in a stalking scenario, and you run into a giant snake or a spider or something some creepy crawly that potentially could be a threat, and then you have to be but still be calm about it. Oh my God, rattlesnake in my face.
I know a place where if you're crawling around, you'd run into some spiders and snakes.
Yeah, it's your shed, Jim. Possibly the most frightening place on earth, apparently.
If you're watching on YouTube, I saw a wolf spider that was probably as big as this thing.
We're talking about, what? I mean, do you really 6 inches in diameter, Jim?
No, 6 is
That's
big.
an exaggeration.
Yeah. Definitely could have sprawled its legs out bigger than my palm. Anyway, okay.
That's a big
but
spider.
have
That's
you
a large.
ever run anything like that?
For school, yes. Gosh. Nothing. No. I mean,
Now, when you were overseas, you never ran any camel spiders while you were out stalking around?
there's always the worst is ants.
Oh,
No.
right. Yeah.
The small killer.
Yeah. We were in one spot, and that we thought it was full of mice. And the thing that got me was, it's probably it turned out to be pretty easy, but I had a toad shoot up my back one night. We're in a position. We ended up also getting bit up by bird mites or whatever the bird. There's birds
Yeah,
in there.
didn't you? You're surrounded by birds.
By birds. So
Eek.
we get bit up by them, and then so it looked like I get hit with a shotgun. But that night, like, it was completely
Wait.
dark in there.
Shotgun?
Yeah. It looked like you got hit by a shotgun.
Looked
Oh,
like.
it looked like.
yeah,
Okay,
I mean, because
all right.
you're so bit up. It was where we're in there. It was a frog, like, somehow, and I thought it was a mouse, shot up my back, and I know I probably just made out probably a squeal, but because I definitely thought it was a mouse running up
Right.
through my back, and it was a stupid toad that just shot up the back of my thing. So no, just the worst ones are the ones you can't.
Yeah, probably like the bugs and the ants.
bugs and
just,
the ants.
Yeah, you get stuck on an ant mound. That can't be comfortable.
That's probably the worst. Like,
Yeah.
and prickly heat from not showering and stuff like that. It's like, because you feel like you're just getting bitten the entire time. But
prickly heat.
yeah,
What's prickly heat?
it's like, it feels, because you haven't showered, and it has to do with like sweating. So
Okay.
it feels like something like you're kind of getting bit.
Yeah.
Type thing. I guarantee you've had it before. You just didn't even know. Like,
Okay,
I mean, that's what we call it, prickly heat. Is like where it feels like something's biting you, but it's not. So the entire time that the mites were in there, we're just like, oh, it's just prickly heat. We haven't showered in a few days, and
You know, actually, so I'm like, I can know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about.
Huh.
Yeah,
So
you're
you-
just like uncomfortable. You want to move. You're like,
yeah, and it has this
yeah.
like, it feels like something's like, it just feels like there's like someone's got it. It's like if you had like a hair in your shirt, and you're like, oh, what the heck?
okay.
And you're just like, it's like just barely just
Got it.
taking, like sticking you a little bit, but yeah.
Do you ever just get massive sunburn?
Yeah. I mean, you try. So, I mean, but after a while, you're, I don't know, you're just so dark. I mean, you come back and everything is red, and you take your shirt off and you're just like Casper,
Okay, right.
But I can only lose so much by skin peeling, I suppose.
Yeah.
So
But
if you're looking for the ultimate farmer's tan,
Yeah.
become a sniper.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, yeah, just sit on a roof for a while, and you're just like, oh God, it's hot.
Yeah.
It's hot. It's hot.
So my last question I'll throw out there that I wanted to address was, so if you were talking to somebody who wanted to become a sniper,
Yep.
some young person thinking, hey, that sounds like the best. Watched all these sick movies, and I played Call of Duty, so I'm ready. What would you tell them? You had only time to tell them one thing.
Tell them one thing.
Maybe I don't know, if you're a fast talker, you could fit two in there if they're really good.
If you're a team player, it's not like the movies. I could probably wrap it up in probably a better thing I should say is that to run this one is I said simply this, and I've told it to a few people. I've said, if you want to sit on a rooftop and be miserable for a few days and potentially not seeing anything, right? And I would say I'd start off with you're stupid for wanting to do this job.
Okay.
And
So you're stupid. You're
Yep.
going to be on a rooftop. It'll be miserable, and you won't see anything.
and you won't see anything. I said, but at the end of the day, there's no other job that I'd rather have done. Even though you're miserable, you're only needed when you're appreciated when you're used, being utilized. But I said at the end of the day, there's nothing else I would have rather been happy doing. I mean, it was an awesome experience. I mean, it was even though it's very, if you're looking to get recognition, it's not for you. If you're looking at making it easy, it's not for you. If you're not a team player, it's not for you. If you're all about team and taking care of each other, it's a job. It's not like in the movies, but it's awesome. It's like I said, I would have never done anything else if I could have did that for longer. I would have done it for longer.
Awesome.
But it's not a very forgiving and caring job. You make the best of it. You make the best of every situation you have and every person that you meet. So, yeah.
Right on.
Cool.
There you have it, everybody. I don't know. There's probably a whole lot more we didn't address. Like you said, we were trying to we're trying to be careful, but Tony, that was awesome though. Appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I would say if you have any questions, shoot them over our way. Why not? We'll see. We'll ask Tony. There's always a chance we can just say pass. But anyway, do that. And otherwise, we'll get you guys on the next podcast. Tony, you gave amazing final thoughts. But any final thoughts?
No.
Beyond your final thoughts?
I appreciate it. And you said it just, I mean, it was entertaining. I was like, trying to keep it in between the parallels, but
no, you did good.
No, I appreciate the opportunity and trying to get out the aspect of it.
Here's a final thought from me, Jim.
Oh, Mark,
I can tell. Well, no, but I can tell through this entire conversation how fondly Tony looks back on these experiences. It just
that's for sure.
You can't hide it. So that's pretty cool.
That's for sure.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
All right, that'll wrap it up for this episode of the Vortex Nation podcast. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hit that subscribe button so you can always stay up to date on the latest happenings over here at the Vortex Nation podcast. You can also follow us on Instagram at Vortex Nation Podcast. Again, everybody, thanks, and happy hunting and shooting. We appreciate it. Have a good one.